The nurse smiled and said, "Your surgery was a success." Then she handed me my phone, and my entire life fell apart. There were 73 missed calls and one voicemail from my father. I pressed play, expecting words of comfort. Instead, he casually said, "We sold your condo while you were under anesthesia. Your sister deserved her dream wedding more than you needed an empty apartment." I couldn't even lift myself out of bed. My spine had just been rebuilt, and somehow my own family had stolen the home I'd spent 15 years earning. They thought I was helpless. They were catastrophically wrong. The first thing I heard after waking from a 9-hour spine surgery wasn't my doctor's voice. It wasn't a nurse telling me the operation had been successful. It was my phone vibrating over and over on the bedside table. At first, I couldn't even remember where I was. Everything felt heavy.
My mouth was dry.
My back burned with a deep, aching pain that made breathing feel like work. A nurse noticed my eyes open and smiled. "Welcome back, Emily. Surgery went well. Just try not to move too much." I managed a weak nod. Then I reached for my phone. The screen lit up. 73 missed calls. 29 text messages. 1 voicemail. Every single notification was from my family. For a brief moment, I smiled. My parents had always worried too much. I assumed they'd been sitting in the waiting room all day, terrified something had gone wrong. I tapped the voicemail. My father's cheerful voice filled the room. "Hey, sweetheart. Surgery should be over by now. We figured you'd be sleeping for a while, so we went ahead and handled something important for you." I frowned. He continued speaking as casually as if he were reminding me to buy groceries. "We sold your condo to pay for your sister's wedding. You were under anesthesia, so we signed the paperwork for you. Don't be upset. Family comes first, and you can always buy another place later." The message ended. For several seconds, I honestly thought the medication was making me hallucinate. I stared at the screen waiting for another message that explained it was some terrible joke. Nothing came. Only silence. The nurse looked over from the monitor. "Emily." I couldn't answer. My hands had started shaking. That condo wasn't just property. It was 15 years of my life. I bought it when I was 32 after years of working as a software engineer. While my friends spent money traveling and upgrading cars, I worked weekends, accepted freelance contracts, and lived in a tiny apartment so I could save every extra dollar. The day I received the keys, I cried in the empty living room. Not because it was luxurious, because it was mine. Every wall represented sacrifice. Every mortgage payment reminded me that no one had handed me anything. 6 months earlier, I had finally finished renovating it. New floors, fresh paint, a small balcony garden my late grandmother would have loved. It wasn't the most expensive home in the city, but it was the first place that truly felt safe. Now my father had just told me he'd sold it. While I was unconscious, I hit redial. Straight to voicemail. I called my mother. No answer. Then my younger sister, Chloe. She answered on the second ring.
"Oh."
"You're awake," she said excitedly. I didn't waste a second. "What did Dad mean?" She laughed. Actually laughed. "You mean the condo?"
"Yeah."
"Dad said you'd probably overreact." My chest tightened. "Tell me this isn't true." "It had to happen, Emily. Our wedding deposits were due. The venue was non-refundable. You've always been the responsible one. You'll recover. You'll make more money." I closed my eyes. "You sold my home." She sighed dramatically. "It's just a condo. It's not like you have kids. You weren't even using it while you were in surgery." The room suddenly felt colder. I ended the call without another word. A few moments later, the nurse quietly stepped beside my bed. I heard enough to know something's wrong. I nodded once. "I think my parents just stole my home." She didn't ask questions. Instead, she gently pressed the call button. A hospital social worker arrived about 20 minutes later. Her name was Karen. She pulled up a chair beside my bed and listened without interrupting while I replayed the voicemail. When it finished, she looked at me carefully. "Emily, right now your job is healing. Let other people help carry this." I stared at the ceiling for a long moment before answering. Then I whispered 4 words. Don't call them back. Karen nodded. All right. She handed me a folder containing my hospital admission paperwork. As I absent-mindedly flipped through the documents, one page caught my attention. It wasn't part of my medical records. It was the legal authorization form I'd signed before surgery. And one sentence printed in bold instantly made my heartbeat change. My parents had permission to make emergency medical decisions, and absolutely nothing else. I didn't sleep much that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard my father's voice again. We sold your condo. The words kept echoing through my hospital room. By morning, the pain medication had started helping my back. Unfortunately, it couldn't do anything for what was happening inside my head. At 9 o'clock, Karen, the hospital's social worker, returned with coffee and a notebook. Have you thought about what you want to do? I nodded. I want the truth. She smiled gently. That's usually the best place to start. The first person I called wasn't my parents. It wasn't my sister. It was David Harrison, the real estate attorney who had handled my condo purchase 2 years earlier. He answered after the second ring. Emily, I heard about your surgery. How are you feeling? I've been better. Then I played my father's voicemail. David didn't interrupt once. When the recording ended, there was complete silence. Finally, he spoke. Emily, nobody can legally sell your property without your authorization. That's exactly what I thought. I'll start making calls immediately. Within 3 hours, he called back. His voice sounded completely different.
Calmer. Sharper.
Something isn't right. What happened? The closing documents include a signature that's supposed to be yours. I frowned. That's impossible. I was unconscious. I know. I also confirmed the closing time. He paused. It happened while you were still in surgery. A chill ran through me. So, they actually went through with it? They tried. David explained that the title company had relied on paperwork presented by someone claiming to have authority to act on my behalf. But there was one enormous problem. No valid power of attorney existed. No court order. No legal authorization. Nothing. The sale should never have moved forward. I've already contacted the title company, David continued. They're opening an internal investigation. And the buyer? They've been notified the transaction may be invalid. For the first time since waking up, I could breathe again. This wasn't revenge. This was simply correcting something that never should have happened. That afternoon, my father finally called. I answered. Emily. He sounded irritated instead of concerned. Why are lawyers calling people? I stayed calm. Because someone tried to sell my home. Were your parents? We did what was best for the family. For Chloe. You've always sacrificed for your sister. She's your only sibling. I looked out the hospital window. When did I agree to sacrifice my home? You would have said yes.
No, you don't know that.
I do. His voice hardened. You're being selfish. The wedding is in 2 weeks. Everything's already paid for. I almost laughed. My spine was being repaired while you were planning a wedding with my property. He didn't answer. Instead, he said quietly, You'll regret tearing this family apart. I ended the call. 10 minutes later, Chloe called. Her voice sounded far less confident than before. Emily, can you please stop this? I've invited almost 300 guests. The florist has already finished everything. The photographer's been paid. I listened without speaking. She finally asked, Do you really want to ruin my wedding? I answered with a question of my own. Did you ever ask if I wanted to lose my home? Silence. Then she whispered, Dad said you'd understand.
No.
I understand now. And I hung up. Over the next 2 days, recovery became strangely easier. Not because my back hurt less. Because I finally stopped doubting myself. Karen helped organize every document. The hospital provided records confirming I had been under anesthesia during the exact time the paperwork claimed I was signing documents. Security logs showed no visitors had entered recovery. Nurses documented that I had been unconscious for hours afterward. Every piece fit together. David built the timeline carefully. The voicemail, the hospital records, the admission forms, the suspicious signatures, the missing legal authority. Everything pointed to one conclusion. Someone had assumed that because I couldn't speak, I couldn't protect myself. They were wrong. Late Friday afternoon, David called again. "I've filed everything. What happens now?" "The court has reviewed the emergency request." I held my breath. They agreed. The judge signed the order. "What kind of order?" David didn't answer immediately. Then he said the words that changed everything. "On Monday morning, someone will be walking into your sister's wedding venue carrying an envelope." Monday morning arrived with bright sunshine. Ironically, it was the same day my sister had planned to finalize every detail for her dream wedding. I was still in the rehabilitation wing of the hospital, slowly learning how to walk without putting too much strain on my healing spine. At exactly 9:14 a.m., my phone rang. It was David. "It's done." I tightened my grip on the walker. "What happened?" "The judge granted the emergency order. The title transfer has been frozen. The county recorder has flagged the property. The sale proceeds are locked until the investigation is complete." I closed my eyes. "So my condo still belongs to you." For the first time since surgery, I felt like I could finally breathe. An hour later, my father called. I answered. His voice no longer carried confidence. It carried panic. "What have you done?" I corrected something that never should have happened. The escrow company froze everything. The buyer's attorney is demanding answers. The wedding planner says several payments can't be processed until this is resolved. I remained quiet. He continued. "Your sister is devastated." I looked out the hospital window. So was I. He didn't respond. Instead, he whispered, "You've embarrassed this family." I took a slow breath.
No.
The family embarrassed itself the moment you believed my unconscious body gave you permission to take my home. He had nothing left to say. The call ended. Later that afternoon, Chloe called. She was crying. Not angry anymore. Just exhausted. The venue postponed the wedding. The florist stopped deliveries. The decorator packed everything up. They said the payment dispute has to be settled first. I listened quietly. "I never wanted this," she whispered. "Then why didn't you stop it?" She didn't answer. Instead, she admitted something I had suspected all along. "I knew Dad hadn't asked you. I just convinced myself you'd forgive us afterward." Those words hurt more than anything else. Not because they were cruel, because they were honest. She had expected forgiveness before asking permission. "I hope someday you have the wedding you dreamed about," I told her. "But it should never have been built on someone else's future." She started crying harder. "I understand. I hope you do." Then I gently ended the call. Over the following weeks, the investigation moved quickly. The title company admitted serious mistakes had been made during the attempted transaction. The buyer received a full refund. Ownership of my condo remained exactly where it had always belonged. With me. No long courtroom battle. No dramatic revenge. Just the law correcting what never should have happened. My parents asked to meet several times. Eventually, I agreed. Dad looked older than I remembered. The confidence that had always filled every room was gone. He stared at the table before quietly saying, I kept telling myself family justified it. I looked at him for a long moment. Family asks. It doesn't take. He nodded slowly. I know that now. Whether he truly understood or simply regretted the consequences, I couldn't say. Either way, the damage couldn't be undone. 3 months later, I unlocked my condo again. The familiar click of the lock nearly brought me to tears. The balcony flowers had withered while I was gone. Dust covered the furniture. Everything felt strangely still, but it was mine. I spent the next few weeks cleaning, decorating, and slowly rebuilding my routine. Physical therapy strengthened my back one careful step at a time. Each week I walked a little farther. Each month I trusted myself a little more. One evening, I stood on my balcony watching the sun disappear behind the skyline. The city looked exactly the way it had before surgery. Only I had changed. People often ask whether I regret taking legal action against my own family. My answer never changes.
No.
Because protecting what you've worked your entire life to build isn't revenge. It's responsibility. My spine healed because skilled surgeons repaired it. My future survived because I chose to protect it. The hardest lesson wasn't learning who my family really was. It was realizing that love without respect isn't love at all. And the home they thought they could take from me became the place where I finally learned that the strongest foundation isn't made of concrete. It's built by knowing your worth, even when the people closest to you forget it.